So in response to the ongoing protests across the country, Trump took to Twitter yesterday and he said the following: "The United States of America will be designating Antifa as a terrorist organization." Going to designate Antifa a terrorist organization. So let's run through the million ways in which this is absurd. First of all, Antifa is not an organization. It is 100% decentralized. There's no leadership, and it's totally amorphous. So how can you designate something like that a terrorist organization? It's not an organization. Okay, that's the first point. The second point is Antifa just stands for anti-fascist. That's all it stands for. And that's a very, very broad label. And listen, presumably everybody's anti-fascist except for fascists. Like, I get what I get the point that conservatives would try to make here. They're like, well, you know what we mean. We mean the people who cover their faces and are wearing all black and might throw a Molotov cocktail or something like that. Like, that's who we're talking about. But listen, if you're going to make the argument that anti-fascists need to be designated terrorists, I have a very simple question for these same people. Would you designate fascists as terrorists? If you said no to that, but you said no to designating anti-fascists as terrorists, might want to reevaluate your moral compass. Because that's absolutely absurd. That's ridiculous. And, you know, my understanding is that under the law right now, fascists are not labeled as terrorists, but you're going to label anti-fascists as terrorists. So that's really sketchy. That's really sketchy. Now, on top of that, and this is probably the most important point here, the real reason why he's doing this, the real reason why he would support something like this, is to criminalize protests, full stop. So you say, Antifa are terrorists, and then you designate everybody who's protesting as Antifa, and then, by definition, all of them would be terrorists. And so what's the reaction that the government would take? Well, they would expand domestic spying. They would take away First Amendment rights. They would take away habeas corpus domestically. We already don't have it, if we catch somebody who we claim is a terrorist from overseas, we don't give them a right to a trial. We put them in Guantanamo Bay. But this would be an expansion of that to not just foreign persons who don't have a right to a trial. This would expand that to Americans, because all they have to do is say, no, you don't get a trial. You don't get Miranda rights. You don't get your day in court. We've designated you a terrorist. You're a domestic terrorist. You're Antifa. And so there is no more rule of law, and there are no more rights and protections. There is no more constitution. That's what he's doing here. So I have to say, man, if you're somebody on the right and you claim to love freedom and liberty and hate tyranny and you believe in small government, but you're cheering this on, God damn it, you're a sucker. Such a sucker. I mean, it's incredible if you fell for this, because there are implications to doing something like he's saying here. Designate Antifa terrorists. Well, then all rules are out the window. When we declare you a terrorist, then we're going to take away all your rights. And again, you don't actually have to be a terrorist. They just need to claim that you're a terrorist. I don't know, you were at a protest and you were wearing black, so I think you're a terrorist. I think you're Antifa. And so your rights are gone. We'll lock you up and throw away the key. We'll spy on all these organizations that are organizing. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, I know people say all the time, oh, that's Orwellian, but this is like the definition of it. This is as authoritarian as it gets. It doesn't get any more authoritarian than this. So if you're somebody who's libertarian by any stretch of the imagination, on the right or the left, you have to look at this and say, no, not acceptable. And by the way, my whole speech here is this is all from me, and I've expressed previously, I'm not a big fan of Antifa. I agree with Noam Chomsky when Noam Chomsky said that Antifa is a giant gift to the right. I basically totally disagree with the strategy that people who identify as Antifa have taken. I don't agree with their strategy. I think their strategy is counterproductive and it leads to left-wing defeats. So I agree with Chomsky. When Chomsky says Antifa's a gift to the right, I'm no fan of what they do. I'm a deep believer in nonviolent, peaceful resistance in, the vein of Martin Luther King Jr. And so they don't agree with that. I don't agree with them. But that doesn't mean you get to call them terrorists and designate them as terrorists and then have all these legal implications. And it is hell no. Pulling a hell no card on this one, man. No way. No way. So, it really is telling, isn't it? The U.S. government does more to snuff out left-wing movements than they do to snuff out right-wing movements. And we've talked about this before, but they defunded the branch of the FBI that investigated right-wing extremists and white supremacists. And they redirected that all towards Muslim extremism. That's what they did. Now, there's also, there's been countless stories on they put more resources towards what they call black identity extremists. Black identity extremists. There's more resources geared towards that than there are geared towards fighting right-wing extremism and white supremacy. I mean, listen, I know the hypocrisy is all over the place, but God damn it, just look at the way that the Michigan protesters, who are right-wingers, they were armed, they went into the Michigan Capitol. Look at how they were treated. No tear gas, no pepper spray, no widespread arrests, right? That's how they were treated. Compare that to all these protests happening across the country right now. Compare what Trump said. What did Trump say when we had the Charlottesville chaos that went down? And you had white supremacists who were protesting to keep up Confederate monuments. And they said, this is why we're here. They chanted, White Lives Matter and Jews will not replace us. And what did Trump do? He gave a speech, or he, was doing a press conference the next day. And he said, well, listen, there's a lot going on, but you have very bad people and very fine people on both sides. On both sides. So wait. Very fine people on both sides. That was when the protesters were white supremacists. I didn't hear him say anything about both sides now. Did he say anything about both sides now? Did he say anything about, hey, listen, sure, you got bad guys in Antifa. You got bad guy cops who are being violent for no reason. But there's good guys and bad guys on both sides. There's good protesters. He didn't say that, did he? Look who gets the benefit of the doubt and look who doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. Unacceptable, man. Hell no on this front. Do not let this happen. Do not let him designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. I mean, we don't have that many rights left. Like, our rights are gone. And they're going to take away the few remaining ones that are there. Terrifying moment in history.